Global Indian Network. Print, TV, events, podcasts. Find out more at globalindianseries.com.
Welcome back to the Global Indian Podcast, home to the greatest conversations and the official platform for open and liberal minds. Because yes, let's face it, we are everywhere. Now, as you know, every single week we plunge ourselves into the human experience behind our perceptions of identity, take a second look at the countries that we now call home, and tackle the big conversations. Well, this week I will share some disturbing images from a very known honeymoon destination. Now, let me describe what I saw. A gang of people carrying submachine guns walking through. People terrified on street corners and the sounds of bullets spraying across the air. Now, you'll be forgiven to think that this is a war-torn country, something that is reminiscent of the current wars taking place in Europe. But the reality is that this is none other than a honeymoon destination. No, it's not what you think. It's not Jamaica. But this is Saint Lucia, a country that is home to over 20,000 people of Indian origin, and a location that is a multi-award-winning honeymoon destination. But in recent years, the country has plummeted. Not only is it stuck with COVID recovery, not only has there been many allegations of mistrust, but the reality is that people are living in quiet lives of desperation, and that desperation is taking itself onto the streets. Now, at a time where there's high unemployment, where people are desperate, where guns are now finding its way too easily and readily on its streets, well, a change needs to take place. Especially also when we consider food insecurity and what that truly means for people who are already struggling for survival. Now, to make sense of the issue, I'm joined by the remarkable Andre de Caires, also known as Poncho. Andre is a leader of the opposition party. He's a member of the Green Party, and he has been working within the country for over 25 years trying to make systemic change. He has an idea that I think that the world can learn more from. Not only does it create empowerment in people, not only does it restore the balance of nature within countries, but importantly, it allows countries to diversify its crop. This is a remarkable conversation and one that you need to hear more about. Not only is it a nation that has very strong links to the community, but it's a nation that is an epitome of what can happen when things go wrong, and how quickly the right ideas can make a significant change. But before then, a quick note from our dear sponsors. If you want to find out more about the Global Indian Series, by the way, well, it couldn't be easier. Simply come to the website, which is www.globalindianseries.com. There you can listen to this podcast and the entire repertoire of discussions so far.
Hi, this is Dharmesh Shingala, co-founder of Novus. At Novus, we believe technology leads the way for a meaningful change. We are on a mission to change the way corporations, governments, and institutions interact with information. Same as the Global Indian podcast, help people transform for a better future. Find out more on how we are inspiring global change, either at the Global Indian Series website or Novus website, to learn more about our innovative software solutions. From our family to yours, I hope you enjoy the show. Thank you.
My name is Chitra Stern, and I am a proud Global Indian Ambassador and CEO of Martinal Resorts and Martinal Residences. We pride ourselves on the journeys that define a community, and our developments bring people together. Did you know that over 70,000 people just like us call Portugal home? The Global Indian journey has brought people together in a meaningful way, and on behalf of all of us at Martinal, we want to thank you for joining us in these remarkable conversations. We look forward to seeing you here in Lisbon post-COVID.
Hi, my name is Divya and I'm co-founder of the Global Indian Podcast. Before you get to today's show, I've got a quick favour to ask. If you've been enjoying our conversations, I'd love if you could take just 1 minute to leave us a review on the platform that you're listening to us on and share our work to friends and family. It helps us out a lot. Word of mouth is the primary way that we grow. Thanks for your continued support.
Thanks, Raj, for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
You're more than welcome. Now, just to put things in consideration, rather than going down to my normal question of what's it like to be you, I just want to paint the picture here. This time last year, in Vieux Fort, where you have a large number of people of Indian origin, you had over 20 weapons of war seized. This included submachine guns and Uzi, through to AR-15 rifles and 100 pieces of ammunition. A few days later, there was open gunfire in broad daylight where gangs were ultimately killing each other. A couple of days ago, there's video footage of gunfire taking place, I think this time in Caries. What's it like to be in Saint Lucia at this moment in time? When did things go wrong?
I think this is a problem that has been festering for many years. We are strategically placed in the Caribbean archipelago right next to France, basically because Martinique is part of France. And South America, cocaine, drugs, moves up to Saint Lucia. So they have a lot of drugs being transported through Saint Lucia to Martinique. From Martinique, it makes its way to Europe because it's Martinique direct to France. So it's a case of drugs for guns, drugs for money. And for many years, the buildup of weapons has reached, I guess, this point where almost a lot of the ghetto youth have some sort of gun. If it's not an AR-15 or some sort of semi-automatic weapon, it's a handgun, a Glock, a Smith & Wesson or something. But there's a lot of guns on the ground in these areas, especially Vieux Fort, because Vieux Fort has a southern port. So drugs come in from the south. And as a result, they have gangs down there who control the drugs, and they have their boys, and their boys are all well armed. So it's about the transport of drugs and the association with drugs and guns that has created this problem, and now it's all through the island. There have countless firearms. Actually confiscating 20 guns and a few rounds of ammunition, that's a drop in the bucket. According to some of my friends who hang out in the ghettos, they say they've seen weapons down there that they don't even see in movies. So there are a lot of high-powered, high-tech weapons on the ground in St. Lucia, and it is scary.
What's the biggest fear for you? Because you hear about what's happening right the way across the Caribbean. We see the state of affairs in Trinidad. Remember, you mentioned to me that the numbers are now skyrocketing for deaths there. You see what's happening in places like Jamaica, for example. What's your fear for a country like St. Lucia that is, one, trying to recover from COVID, two, with increasingly high levels of unemployment, unacceptable levels, considering the amount that the government claims to be coming in through FDI and investment attraction? You're a man of the people, Pancho. What are the fears there?
Well, for now, I mean, so far the guys haven't targeted our guests, our visitors, which is a good thing. I mean, there's petty crime, maybe somebody rips off somebody's chain in the street. But when it comes to actually targeted crime in terms of guys shooting and killing visitors, that has not arrived as yet. Not saying that it can't, because desperate people will do desperate things. Right now, it's about battles between gangs. And my greatest fear, and I guess the fear of most people who are not involved in drugs and gangs, is the danger of a stray bullet. These young men firing these automatic weapons indiscriminately. Also to the fact that if news of this sort of behavior gets out, it could also damage the tourism industry. People would be reluctant to come to St. Lucia knowing that this sort of violence is taking place with these kind of weapons. So, but for me personally, because I'm not involved in that sort of behavior, I don't think I'm targeted, and many people are not targeted. it's usually confined to these drug gangs.
When you look at the economy of St. Lucia, you wrote this incredible article saying economy must meet ecology. You had a look at the Green Revolution. And I know that we've had many conversations in the past that you say, well, the actual culture, the identity of the nation has almost been eroded over the years, because whereby people look at agriculture as just a commodity. Yeah, agricultural uses in St. Lucia is really what defines some of the community members there, especially when we have a look at things that are now becoming legalized, for example. Has the St. Lucian identity shifted over the last 5 or 6 years or so? And what's been the cause of that?
Well, I mean, COVID has really upset the apple cart completely. So maybe we were on a certain trajectory, socially, economically, and then COVID came into play. And now we've hit sort of like the rewind or the restart button, and we're trying to build from COVID. It really didn't help the unemployed youth. In fact, it exacerbated the problem. And I think this is where the violence stems from, the unemployed young men. And this has been going on for a while. We don't have jobs for them. Many of these young men come from single parent homes or no parent homes, where the grandparent or the cousin or the aunt or the uncle is bringing up these kids. So there's no sort of role model, whether it be male or family model. So these young men are brought up with no values, no morals, no ethics, no light at the end of the tunnel. So life is worthless to them. They're ready, they're on the brink of death every day then. When I speak to them, their attitude is a very don't care attitude about life. So if they don't care about their own lives, I mean, they're not going to care about other people's lives. So this social decay has been happening for a long time. It's men being irresponsible, having sex with women, and as soon as the woman gets pregnant, they disappear. The woman doesn't have a job, then she has a child. She herself isn't ready for a child. And these children grow up with, no hope, no light, and they just turn to violence and drugs and guns and find a home in a gang where,
they're validated,
it's like a
aren't
family.
They? Absolutely. It's what society hasn't given them, that they find refuge in a gang, because automatically they got a family, they got love, they got support, they got validation. There's people that have ultimately got their back to say, hey, do you know what? We're in this together. But on the flip side, what's really shocking is, but tourism is supposed to be picking up in St. Lucia. You've got all these homes, you got hotels, you got buildings being built through the CBI program. Is that not making a difference to unemployment levels in the country? Where is that money going to?
Okay, well, there are two basic kinds of jobs that require some level of education. So if you work in the hotel industry, I mean, the housekeeping and gardening maybe doesn't require such a high level of education, but it does require some sort of, you have to behave in a certain manner. And if you haven't been trained to behave and speak in a certain manner, then you would be excluded from getting jobs, even though they are low-level jobs that don't require much education. And you find that many of these young men have not finished school. They left school at, primary school, 11, 12 years old. So their level of education hinders their ability to enter the workforce. Agriculture, on the other hand, doesn't require that much education, but it's more about manual labor. And as time, we were a banana economy before the WTO came into play, and then we lost preferential treatment, and then we made that shift from agriculture to tourism. But the attitudes towards work, the work ethic, is no longer there in a young man. You wouldn't find a young man going to work in the bananas to get measly pay at this point in time. They rather do nothing than actually do work and get paid low wages. So, and you know, the thing about it is that we import about $500 million worth of food, while we could be producing maybe at least 1/3 of the fresh produce right here. Maybe half of it can be produced right here with proper agricultural infrastructure. And we just don't look at agriculture as seriously as we can. We looked at bananas as a green goal. We never did anything with diversified crops. So now we're behind the 8 ball, trying to lower our food import bill. And not only that, we have a problem with hypertension and diabetes because of the foods that we eat in, the imported processed foods. We have a problem with plastic. All these plastic containers get dumped all over the place. So we need to take a holistic approach to this, to the development of the country that would, you know, reduce crime, provide meaningful jobs for those people that who have been completely left out of the workforce. We need to create these jobs. And the only jobs that you could really get these guys into is agricultural jobs or construction jobs. And you mentioned the hotel, the building of homes and stuff. I think there's a saturated labor market when it comes to construction. There's very little. I mean, we can't produce 1,000 more construction jobs just like that. It just wouldn't happen. But to produce, you know, $200 million worth of fresh vegetables, you'd need a substantial labor force to do that.
Obviously, the know-how is there to get that moving. Is it a lack of will from the government, or is it a lack of will from the people to get the progress being made? Because during the height of COVID, you know, I think it was people given literally an hour's notice or so, and all the shops were shut. You know, and what people forget is that if you are on a subsistent lifestyle, i.e., you have to go to work to earn for that day, and then you go back and you have to spend it to feed yourself. That is a detrimental part of society. So I think what I'm really asking is, who's to blame for this, Pancho? Because if you got such a high food bill, high energy crisis, surely your economists, surely your policies that were put forward in government should have foreseen this and done something about it years ago.
Well, I think it's successive administrations. When I migrated to Saint Lucia in 1987, I came at the end of the green gold era, where many people, uneducated, illiterate, were given the opportunity through the banana farming to actually elevate themselves. You know, it created a social pathway for upward mobility. And a lot of these people who otherwise would not have got higher paid jobs worked hard in the bananas and made lives better for themselves, build homes, educated their children. Now their children don't want to work in agriculture. Their children turned out to be lawyers, doctors, you know, in different parts. They just left agriculture completely. And agriculture was considered bananas. You'd find that a farmer had 5 acres of bananas and not even 10 square feet of any sort of other food to feed himself. He was just dependent on banana money. He would get his banana check and then go to the grocery and buy food. He wasn't actually growing other food other than bananas, other vegetables or food crops other than bananas. So that monocrop system, apart from destroying ecosystems and silting up riverways and, you know, waterways and just toxifying the soils, we never got into a proper diversified agricultural system. I was actually hired by the government in 1987 as a manager involved in agricultural diversification. And it's very hard to replace bananas because bananas grows year-round, and you could harvest bananas year-round. So you could get a paycheck every week year-round. There are very, very few crops that can actually do that. We made a try with pineapples, but that is it takes 18 months from planting to maturity, and then it's seasonal, and it just wouldn't replace bananas. So we came up with the idea to grow cannabis. And that was 25 years ago, almost. Next year, it would be 25 years since we submitted our industrial hemp initiative proposal. Back then, actually, the United States was saying that coconut oil was giving people cholesterol. And apart from the WTO destroying our banana industry, then negative propaganda about coconut oil causing cholesterol and shortening your life. The copper industry was just destroyed. We had a coconut oil factory that was hiring 250 people, and that disappeared, and today it's derelict up to a day like today. And back then, we suggested to the government that we diversify the factory, and instead of making coconut oil for human consumption, let's do body care products. Let's use the coconut oil as a base, introduce hemp oil, and come up with a line of body care products. But back then, just to suggest that you want to deal with the cannabis plant was taboo. So we were totally just discredited, and nobody took us seriously. And as a result, we have no coconut oil factory, we have no copra, and now we realize that it was just a sham. Coconut oil is one of the best oils for you to consume. So just a little bit of negative propaganda just killed our coconut oil industry after killing our banana industry. So there's no scope for agriculture. And that's when we continued pushing. Me and my cousin, who came up with the Industrial Hemp Initiative, continued pushing the cannabis issue until we hear where we are now, 25 years later, where the government has decriminalized last year and moving towards full legalization, where we're going to actually come up with a cannabis industry. Now, how does this tie into the crime situation? We are a cannabis consuming nation. Many people consume cannabis. Even when it was illegal, it was almost legal because you could get cannabis anywhere. Many of these young men, many, if not all, that have these guns also are cannabis users. Now, the plan is, if we could get half of these guys out of the gangs and into the fields growing cannabis, that's a passion. They would love to grow cannabis. Then you reduce the amount of bad boys on the street with guns. You could give them a good paying job, not a minimum wage job, but a living wage job, so that they don't need to look to crime to support themselves. And it's something that they love. They would love growing cannabis plants. That's their passion, because
because you know these people as well, don't you, Pancho? You know the communities there. So it's not the case of saying, do you know what? Here, go out there and make money, stop being bad. It's more so saying, look, I understand why you joined gangs. I understand why you did this, because there's a lack of meaningful opportunities that you thought the government would provide you, that you thought that the government would change the economy. Again, during the election promises that we're going to do something, but nothing happened. But here's a viable opportunity to give you, as a citizen of Saint Lucia, a genuine passport holder, the opportunity to control the outcome of your life. And you can do it through the use of growing these agricultural materials, which is a huge marketplace. You know, this is a multi-billion-dollar industry globally. And so then you're looking to do this, and not only do it in a way that is ethical and fair, but also changes the very factors of how localized economies run. Why was this not done earlier? Because the idea just sounds straightforward. It sounds sensible, and it sounds economically driven.
I think basically because, you know, we in this America's sphere of influence, and we have international drug law treaties that we've signed on to. So there's a certain sort of hesitation to rock the boat by our politicians and not go ahead with something that we know that would be beneficial, even though these international bodies may want to sanction us for making that move. And I think we look at Canada, Uruguay, Bolivia as some of the countries that have breached the international treaties and have found no backlash. So this should be encouraging for us and give us the confidence that we could go ahead with these moves without negative repercussions. And these guys, the whole purpose is not only to focus on cannabis, but when I go on cannabis farms, which are hidden away because of the illegality of it, many of these guys are top-class agriculturalists. The guys who are growing cannabis here, they don't only grow cannabis, but because they're up in the hills, they have to grow food to feed themselves while they're up there. And they're great agriculturalists. So we can't look at it as just a monocrop of cannabis. We want to create a diversified, integrated agricultural system using cannabis as a catalyst for an agricultural renaissance that would provide meaningful jobs to these young men. So it would attract them to agriculture rather than to the gang culture.
Which subsequently means less danger in the streets. It's a virtuous economy because that way it's safer. People then are wanting to come over to the country even more so. And that means the investments that come into a nation don't just center around almost carbon-infused building, i.e., let's just build a hotel for the sake of a hotel. Let's just build a casino for the sake of casino. But this is more so saying, actually, do you know what? Let's be conscious about what our country has, the limited resources that we realistically have. So therefore, you can't waste it on just mass buildings that the local people can't afford. So what you're really talking about here, Panche, if I read between the lines, is an absolute revolution in terms of how the people of Saint Lucia, and as well as the people in the Caribbean, can actually make the countries their own. Rather than just becoming concrete jungles, you're saying, well, why don't we greenify? Why don't we learn to feed ourselves? Become truly sustainable. And once it becomes sustainable, then there's a lot of other entry points. Because if you look at the bond market, for example, green bonds, it's there. People investing billions into this. Now, I have to scratch the little hair that I have left on my head to think, well, it makes sense. It's clear. Why is your government not putting enough effort to making, and I know that there's a case that you're saying it could be the US, it could be the Canadians of the world, but your government's got an equally intrusive scheme, which is a CBI industry, which is nearly on the backbench if things don't change, that will absolutely stop the visa-free access that the local St. Lucia will have into Europe. That is something that is of high controversy. You've had the FATCA reports when it comes to your banking licenses, about the way that people have been utilizing that. These are two things that have really annoyed the US and Canada. And you guys are trying to enter into an industry that is a multi-billion-dollar industry that will feed people on the ground, that will give people a meaningful existence. So it can't be just about the optics. Is it just a lack of wanting from the government? Is it just too easy to make money from one side rather than having to invest to help the population on the other?
That's exactly it. You see, the CIP is easy money. Getting a foreign investor to come in here and build a hotel is easy money.
But they're not foreign investors, though. That's the thing. These guys aren't investing into the country. They're investing in a scheme that provides them a passport. And nobody actually knows how much of that money enters into the government coffers when you take out the marketing fees, the lawyer fees, and everyone else in between. So they're not even investors. If we put the wool, if we say for what it is, you know.
Yeah, you're correct. And Derek Walcott, our Nobel laureate, who had passed recently, a few years ago, he described the whole hotel industry as plantations by the sea, and it's not banana plantations, but our people end up still in a hotel plantation with meager salaries and just laborious work. and no sense of independence. As you rightly stated, these guys come in there and it's, the politicians get their cut, and the guys do what they want. They get their tax exemptions and all their fluff, and they make money, and the average St. Lucian who works in the hotel works for pittance. So it's really not building up the society.
There's no capacity. So when the government rolls out messages saying what employment levels are up, or they're just changing the statistics, because we had a great podcast with another St. Lucian actually, and he said, look, the problem with the hotel industry is most people now are realizing the cost it takes to get to the hotel and back and how much they earn. They're better off not even working. And when you get to a state like that, then bigger questions have to come up play. And then the other issue is, Pancha, and something that we've spoken about before that you're very keen on, is saying, well, what is the longevity for this? Your father works in the hotel, great. What? Then the child works in the hotel? Then the grandchild works in the hotel? What about developing new industries of expertise? What about the local people of St. Lucia realizing their true benefit in the value chain of the world and entering into the job market or creating entrepreneurs that do something much deeper than just servicing other human beings who are in a country short term where all they're paid to do is smile, be polite, and almost just provide them a form of entertainment? That can't be a fulfilling life for the vast majority of people there.
It isn't for the vast majority. I know I myself am close to the hotel industry, and I know that people appreciate their jobs, because if they didn't have a job, it would be worse. Yeah. But the hotel industry does create an opportunity because we have so many visitors. There is a market for, and you said, the diversification of the whole the industry itself, not the hotel industry, but industries in general. And there's a great scope for cottage industry. So people who may not be able to get a job in a hotel may be able to create items or goods or services that the hotel industry needs, so they're not actually getting paid a salary by the hotel. And we need to create these cottage industries so that we could be suppliers of goods and services to the hotels, not just only working in a hotel. So it's a double-edged sword. We need the hotel industry because we don't have natural resources. And the only thing we have other than the hotel industry is agriculture. So I think we need to focus on the agriculture, and especially the cannabis industry, because as you mentioned, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. And we find that people are coming from America and Canada to our island. And the thing is that these people, where they come from, it's legal in their country. And then they come to the Caribbean where there's Rastaman and black people, and we're known for ganja. And then it's illegal here. So, I mean, our politicians are not even making the connection that we could actually make a lot more money when fully legalized by these visitors coming in and enjoying our environment, the people in Saint Lucia have a vibe. I'm not from here. I came here 35 years ago, and I stuck here because of the people. The people are the nicest people in the Caribbean, friendly, happy people. So we have all the ingredients to actually attract people and make people feel great here in Saint Lucia. And the whole cannabis situation would just make it even that more attractive to foreign visitors.
Because you're not just talking about, and you're not discussing street cannabis, you're saying a standardization approach for cannabis creation for both the medical industry, but also for the recreational industry. So you're talking about bringing in patented seeds, things therefore that when you have it, you know exactly what you're having, you know what it would feel like, essentially what the US has done and what Canada's done. The strangest thing is you were talking about this way before the US and Canada even launched their schemes. You've almost been an advocate, almost a sheer seeing into the future, saying this is what the world could be like. You wrote your article over 7 years. ago, where you actually outlined point by point the areas where St. Lucia's economy could be running. I think a lot of people didn't take it as seriously as they do now, because what you've proven is that the green industry is a true industry. It is an economic powerhouse that not only creates employment, but also eradicates a lot of the ills in society and does a lot in terms of providing people a safe place to actually enjoy the human experience of who they are. It gives people job opportunities, and also is less intrusive on the environment compared to just planting sugar canes, which, as we know, can create a far more damaging response out there. Pancho, to wrap it up, what do you want the audience to know? Because we have leaders from across the globe that listen in every single week. We have billionaires from over 48 countries. It is a phenomenal audience that is growing every single day. What do you want them to remember about St. Lucia from where it is now and where the potentials of its future could lay into?
Well, I think that, I will be biased. I mean, I'm a born Grenadian that grew up in Trinidad, that lived in Tobago, that knows Barbados. So I know the Southern Caribbean pretty well. And people who are listening to this should really check out St. Lucia, because it's it's a diamond in the rough. It's a beautiful country in terms of the landscapes and the beaches and everything, but the people are what really make it beautiful. And the crime, I am not scared. Like I say, I work with a hotel, and the guests rent cars and drive all around the island, and it's safe. It's these pockets of bad boys and underprivileged, angry young men that are involved in gangs that are the problem right now. And the government needs to tackle it. But once you realize that the government is making an effort to tackle it, St. Lucia is a beautiful place to visit. And I would encourage anybody who hasn't been here to come here and check out our lifestyle, the way we live. It's really heaven on earth, I would say.
It is. And, we obviously met in St. Lucia many moons ago, and back and forth. It is a wonderful place. But I think the caveat is that it's something that was said on the podcast, again, by a St. Lucian individual. He said, if the wealthy do not share their riches, the poor shall share their poverty. And St. Lucia is a classic example of that, whereby when you have nothing to lose because everything that you hoped for had been taken away, and promises after promises from government officials that say tomorrow will be better, and as they drive around in their brand new Range Rovers or new 4x4s, and you're struggling for subsistent farming because you realize actually something does fundamentally have to shift. It can no longer be politics for politics' sake. It can no longer be a divide and conquer rule. You can't have ministers that the US, your own key stakeholders, are concerned over. It's ridiculous. There has been a new type of politics that come in that is for the people, by the people, who makes a difference for every sentient being in the country. And for me, Pancho, there's no other individual like that in the country. And I'm going to be slightly biased because we have a solid friendship, but looking at you as a human being, you've dedicated your life towards change within that country. The work that you have done time and time again, even when the political cameras are off, when the lights are switched away and the cameras are pointing in the other direction, you still continue to go out there in the community to drive home the message that we as St. Lucians deserve more. And the Green Party that you have is not just about the environmental protection, but it's a protection of human integrity. It's about giving people jobs, giving people meaning, and more importantly, enjoying this world as a fellow sentient being to make sure that we do not do any more further damage that destroys future generations. That's enough of my Jerry Springer moment right there. I think I've said enough, but Pancho, thank you very much for coming on the platform. I know it's super early morning for you there in St. Lucia. I can still hear the crickets in the air on your side, but I really do appreciate you coming on.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, Raj, and keep well.
You're welcome. What an incredible conversation. It's an interesting one because I'm finding myself getting more and more involved in the social aspects of discussions, as you've probably seen on the podcast, the reason why the Saint Lucia issue is so close to my heart is because it's as the saying goes, right is right, even if everyone is against it, and wrong is wrong, even if everyone is for it. And when you have a look at what's happening in this incredible, beautiful country, where its people deserve a better future, and seeing how progressive administrations, especially in the last couple of years, have destroyed the hopes of entire generations, where false promises have become the fodder in which people are elected upon, and where people are now turning to violence as a way to sustain themselves, well, is a lesson for the world to learn more about. As always, a massive thank you for listening in, and look forward to you joining me next week as we continue our 50 Shades of Brown discussions traveling the world. Until then, I hope all remains well. Bye for now.
Global Indian Network. Print, TV, events, podcasts. Find out more at globalindianseries.com.